All right, so it looks like Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul is not happening because Jake Paul has finally moved on. He's fighting someone else, and that man is not 58 years old. He's a badass. He's a real fighter. He's a tough test. He's not a boxer necessarily, but he is a man from the bare-knuckle world. And you know who I'm talking about. It's the Platinum One himself. Platinum Mike Perry, a man that I have a lot of respect for because this man is a real fighter. Now, first of all, Jake Paul, he was supposed to fight Mike Tyson. Then the date got pushed back.
Different date, same fate. I'm gonna knock out Jake Paul.
Because Mike Tyson had the medical emergency.
Our back is broken, spinal.
And now there's controversy surrounding whether or not Mike will be able to even train. And now there is a new date set with a new opponent. Mike Perry versus Jake Paul will go down July 20th. From various reports, and people are talking about this like it's actually going to happen. So, a lot of thoughts, okay? Jake Paul is rolling the dice here, okay? He's rolling the dice. He's grown a set of balls. He's taking on a man that is in his fighting prime, but a man that isn't a boxer. Now, Mike Perry, as we know, had a good run in the UFC. He went 14-8. He had some big fights. He lost some. He won some. No, he was a very entertaining guy. Then he went over to the bare-knuckle world, and that is where Mike Perry became a star, found his groove, and started making a ton of money, regardless of what Sean Strickland says. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Sean Strickland and Mike Perry getting into a little bit of beef. But Mike Perry went over to the Bare Knuckle Association and beat some truly great fighters. Number one, Michael Venom Page, a man that's fighting at UFC 303 against Ian Gary, right? And he's closing in on a UFC title fight in just 2 fights. Michael Venom Page is tall, he's long, he's quick, but Mike Perry is an absolute savage. He also beat my old mate.
You're just an average bloke.
Good use of English terminology.
I'm a fucking samurai.
Luke Rocco, yeah, went forward, got him done, knocked his teeth out, stopped the fight. Didn't knock him out, but knocked his front teeth out. And Luke Rocco was like, listen, I'm too pretty for this shit. I'm done. Also took out the likes of Eddie Alvarez, a former UFC lightweight champion, and of course, Thiago Alves, a man that fought for the welterweight strap against George St. Pierre at UFC 100. So, no stranger to fighting great people. In the UFC, I think he went 14-8. So 20 fights or so, 22 fights in the UFC. And on the flip side, for the last few years, we had Jake Paul coming from the YouTubing world into the boxing. He had a slow progression before he took on a real test, okay? He took on a basketballer. He took on Ben Askren. He took on Tyron Woodley, to be fair, but not the old Tyron Woodley. The fire's gone out and doesn't throw a punch version of Tyron Woodley. No disrespect to the former champion, of course. He did fight a real boxer once. That man's name was Tommy Fury, okay? A beginner, an amateur, but a young man in his prime, and he lost. And a real fighter wants to go for the rematch, but he didn't do that. He moved on, and yeah, sure, he beat Nate Diaz. Of course, he beat Anderson Silva as well, who will be boxing again soon against Chael Sonnen, which is a surprising matchup, although I am very intrigued. In Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva. Now, there's a couple of guys in the boxing world that Jake Paul did beat. Andre August and Ryan Borland. Guys that are boxers, okay, but they're now working as Uber drivers and stuff like that, and they're way past the prime and they're way out of shape. So, July 20th, that's the date. Jake Paul, Mike Perry. The reason he's picking Mike Perry is because, well, he couldn't perform in the UFC. He kind of lost a few fights there, so he went over to bare knuckle. He's a bare knuckle brawler. He's got no technique, he's got no heart, he's got no stamina. He's just a slugger. He doesn't know what he's doing. Jake Paul's one of the best boxers on planet Earth. He's the next best boxer of his generation, okay? He's going to take out Canelo Alvarez and all of this shit, all the while trying to cherry pick opponents that are 58 years old. I say that he has made a big mistake here. The reason he called out Tommy Fury is because he was a YouTube star, okay? And he had the name Fury, and he thought he could beat him.
My son cannot be beat.
He didn't beat him, so he went back to people like Nate Diaz.
I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Smaller than him, not as strong as him, not as disciplined as him. Diaz also, by the way, he'll be boxing against Masvidal.
Done doing all this shit. This ugly motherfucker. Hey, peace out. Hey.
Oh! I am intrigued in that one as well. And they got into a massive brawl recently. I don't know if you saw that one. Shit hit the fan in a major way at the Diaz versus Masvidal press conference. I'm going to do a video on that. We'll talk about that at another date. But as I say, when you're talking about Mike Perry's a savage. Listen, and he's got good technique. When you look at the boxing, of Jake Paul. Even though he was going up against Mike Tyson, there was a chance, there was the danger that he would lose that fight in devastating fashion. There was a danger he would get knocked out because he loops his shots. He's not technical. He's not sharp. Yeah, he's got power. He's a young man. He's in his prime and he's not a bad lump of a man. So, of course, he's going to have power and he's dedicated himself and he's got some good trainers and he's improving all the time. So, fair play, I give him respect for that because anyone that steps in the ring, they deserve your respect. They do if you're taking on tough tests. Now, he thinks Mike Perry's easy work. He thinks Mike Perry's got a big name. He's a big star and he's going to go out there and beat him, right? But he's wrong. Mike Perry is a fighter. Mike Perry wasn't necessarily the best jiu-jitsu artist or had the best wrestling, but there's not a fight that Mike Perry won't take. I've spoken to Mike Perry on several occasions, and he is the epitome of a real fighter. And he's an absolute star in the bare-knuckle organization.
I want to see what this Jake Paul right-hand punch is doing. And when he hit with it, I remember it coming down, splitting my guard. Bam! And as I come back, I'm like this. Oh, that was a good one. Come here. They were like, oh, yeah, you're a sniper. They stopped saying that shit by the fourth round. And then he started running into my shit because he moves his head like, you know, those boxers do. And I started timing him. I would throw the jab, he would slip, and I would rip the uppercut.
And as I said, beating people like Michael Venom Page, I didn't expect that. Beating people like Luke Rockhold, who still got it. Regardless of what people say, people like to shit all over Luke Rockhold. The man still got it. He was a tremendous champion back in the day. Luke Rockhold just stopped Joe Schilling. Okay, Joe Schilling was a bad man. He was a great kickboxer that's had a ton of fights, fought in mixed martial arts as well. Stopped him with a perfectly timed right hand. What I'm saying is when you talk about Mike Perry, the fact that he's beating these guys, okay, shows that he's made a mistake. So Jake Paul, I think he's made a tremendous mistake here because he's a real fighter. He's going to get in shape. He's not afraid to mix it up. And he's going to go right at Jake Paul. Not the way Nate Diaz did. He's going to go forward with close, tight, sharp, powerful hooks. He's going to be in shape. The man's got a chin. And the fire still burns. When I talked about Tyron Woodley before, and I said the fire had gone out, I'm not trying to shit on Tyron Woodley. But it's kind of the fact. He lost his 5 fights in the UFC and he never really showed up. You know, we all talk about we get soft as we get older. I've got soft as I've got older. Still got it though, kids. Don't you bloody forget that. But for Tyron Woodley, that ship had sailed. Okay, he wasn't hungry anymore. Mike Perry is hungry. He's found his niche, he's found his groove, and he's making tons and tons of money. As I said before, Sean Strickland and him were talking shit. Sean Strickland was saying,
how much would I fight fucking bare knuckle for? Nothing they would pay me. Making their orbitals and they're making like a couple $1,000.
Sean Strickland, he's fighting for the UFC for pesos, and I'm getting paid over here. And he's always posting videos on Instagram where he walks outside of his garage or his front door and somebody's in his driveway and he's like trying to fight him bare knuckle for free right there. So what are you talking about?
They're both getting paid. Strickland, I don't know what he gets paid in the UFC, but I'm sure it's a handsome dollar. And I know Mike Perry is earning a ton of money as well. And I know a couple of fighter friends of mine that were also offered contracts with the bare knuckle organization. And I was actually astounded to hear what the figures were. I don't know how they're making all this money to pay the fighters, but there's real money being earned over at the bare knuckle organization, but nowhere near what you earn in the UFC if you're one of the big names, if you're a player, if you're a driver, if you're a ticket seller. Anyway, Jake Paul, Mike Perry, the fight is on. The date is set. I can't wait for this one. Of course, I'm rooting for my brother, Mike Perry. What do you think? Jake Paul's made a massive mistake. This is another miscalculation. They've been very clever, okay? Anderson Silva, way past his prime. Nate Diaz, past his prime, underestimated him. Tyron Woodley, again, really, really smart. Ben Askren, perfect. The man's a fantastic mixed martial artist because of his wrestling, but he couldn't punch his way out of a wet paper bag. Mike Perry's a brawler, man. Mike Perry's going to get in his face. Mike Perry, if this fight actually does go down, Mike Perry is going to destroy Jake Paul. You heard it here first. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Let me know down there. What do you think about the matchup? Do you think the match with Mike Tyson will ever go ahead now? It seems that ship has sailed. And I'll also say this. If Jake Paul loses this, the fight with Mike Tyson is definitely off because the allure has gone, okay? So anyway, there it is. There's my thoughts. Let me know. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, ring the bell, and I will see you soon.